All right, hi everybody, and welcome to another edition of Ozzy and Keats. We're not great, we're just okay. The O is for Osgood, the K is for Keats. We thought that was hilarious when we came up with it. John Keating and Chris Osgood with you. We are joined to you by the folks at Podcast Nation in Troy, Michigan. Zach and Bill do a terrific job there, and I am coming to you from Oddside Ales Tap Room in Grand Haven, where it's another John and Chris. They do another great job here, and I encourage
Really?
anybody on the west side of the state to pop in there and have a pint, or they've got a great coffee bar as well, because that's all you're concerned about is coffee, not the great ales that they might pour here, right? You're more of a
Yeah,
coffee guy
especially
than a
this morning. I used to have coffee before we do our games with FanDuel and all the other networks or whatever you call we were on, only because I'd have one or two. One, because I had to be focused and ready for whatever you're gonna reference from different eras, which was true, and I had to be ready to go. Sometimes
yeah.
you weren't on your A game. You were
Well,
tired, you were exhausted.
and that was sort of the relationship, is that you had to pay attention to what I was saying so you would be ready with the quick
Well,
retorts, right? I mean, as opposed to most times where you just sort of space out, it's just like you had to listen. You actually had to listen to what I was saying so you could reply to it, if especially if there was a reference to,
well,
Rick Astley or something that happened in the 80s, which is your
it was the
decade.
old days when the teleprompter was on and I could read what you were gonna say before it came on.
Yeah,
And that kinda ruined it for me. I did like reading what was coming, but then I started laughing prior to you actually delivering it,
I know.
and then we
We've
kinda
told
had
we've
an
told that we've told that story, and
yeah.
you would start giggling, and then before the line could be delivered, and then I would start giggling, and then the line wouldn't be delivered, so you ruined it. You ruined the
And we
show.
kind of had the agreement where you would never tell me what you're gonna do. It was kinda and this is the truth, is I had no clue where you're going half the time other than really. So I'd call you in the morning, you'd call me back, then we'd have the meeting at 10 with everybody, the producers and everybody else. Then I'd call you after the meeting, then I'd call you down to the rink, then you call me at the rink, then I'd call you, I'm in the parkade to tell you I'm at the rink. And then we meet in the press lounge, and we had a reference of what we were going to talk about game wise or player wise or whatever we're going to do. But other than that, I didn't want to know where you're going. I thought that worked out way better than when I actually knew,
Well,
because
yeah,
it was more
yeah,
natural.
absolutely, and and I think
6
I've shared
times
this
we talked. I
before.
didn't know we
It
talked that
would
much
it's
prior to
like we
coming
would
on
be
the
on the
show.
set, and we're 3 minutes away from the start of the show. "What are we talking about?" he would say, and all of a sudden, he starts making notes to himself, because now he's actually realizing that he's gonna have to be on television and talking to the
Yeah.
kids, but
My
it
favorite call was the call after the show in the parkade at down at the LCA.
okay.
Just so we could go over the show and if there's any tweaks that we had to do for the next one.
All right, we're now on the other side of Labor Day,
Yeah.
and hockey is coming to the great delight, I think,
Mm.
of Red Wing fans and all hockey fans in the state of Michigan. Are you a pumpkin spiced person?
No, is that the coffee kind? No, I
Yeah.
am not.
Well, there's coffee. There's pumpkin
No,
spiced
I'm
ales
not.
that
I
are
was
out
never
there.
like a huge pumpkin guy. Um, my mother would make and my grandmother would make pumpkin pie in Canada, and I ate it because back then you had to eat what they gave you. So I'd load it up with whipped cream to take away the taste. That's what I would do. But I don't love pumpkin. And if we go back to coffee, the reference, I drink coffee straight, then with nothing in it really. I'm trying to drink less because I get too fired up sometimes.
How many cups of coffee will you have in a day?
When I was doing a game with you, 1 in the morning, 1 on the way down, probably 1 when I was there, and then remember you were exhausting sometimes after 2 periods, so I'd have 1 after 2 periods. Then I'd be fired up after the game, I'd call you after the game on the ride home down 96.
People would,
So 4.
well, but the great crew that we had around
Yeah, oh,
us at the
great.
arena, they would, Ricky would go n Gino would go and actually get coffee for you and
Yeah,
deliver it to the set, which is as good as it gets, just so you're able to stay awake through the
yeah,
3rd period, right?
yeah, and I didn't ask for that. That's that's very diva-like, isn't it? You would say, but, yeah.
Absolutely.
Ricky's great. He grabbed me a coffee. I think he could tell when I was getting tired, and it was a couple times, but not a lot. A lot of and at first, remember we went to the concourse, and you and I were kind of skeptical. We're looking at this stage, it's nestled there. We didn't know how long it was going to stand up, but there's tons of people around. And I would say about it took probably 8 to 10 games to get used to it, but I think you and I would say
Yeah,
now.
we did.
We liked it down there. It was fun.
Yeah, there was
Um,
energy and,
yeah, it was
people
energy.
chanting, "Ozzy, Oz,"
At
you love
first, it was
that,
a little bit too
"Ozzy,
much,
Ozzy."
but to have Mickey down there with us and the fans behind
Oh
us
my
and really
god.
get into it,
Yeah,
it's a cool setting, and I actually liked it more than I did up top wherever we were before. Was that level 2 or 3?
yeah,
Um,
the
we're
mezzanine
kind of
level, yeah.
even with the scoreboard, but there were some fans in front of us, but not a lot. But we had a lot of fun last year and your last year. I think we closed out the way we were supposed to, other than the Wings in the
We did.
playoffs, which would be nice.
Yeah, yeah, there's no regrets about that, and soon you're going to be starting, another hockey season, and I'll be, sitting with a non-coffee liquid in my
You'll
hand
be
watching you, and
critiquing from a distance.
absolutely. Oh, I'll
Yeah,
text you after every attempt at humor, I will be texting you saying, "That wasn't funny," or "That didn't work at
that
all,"
wasn't
or
that
why
wasn't
are you wearing that tie? Why are you wearing that tie with my face on it?" Because 'Cause you've told me, I it might be Daniela Bruce, it might be the new guy, Logan Reaver, but you have shared with
like.
me
Could
that
you say
you're
if
gonna
the
show up
Wings?
the first night with a tie with my face on it.
I'm thinking about like a reference. I've been thinking like we talked Gilligan's Island today. If the Wings win 6 in a row, could I say like the only thing that looks better than the Wings is Marianne? That would get some people thinking because everybody thought like we talked about it was Ginger. I don't think it was. Now a lot of people are going to know what I'm talking about, but YouTube or Google it, you'll find out.
Yeah, yeah, before we started recording, we had
Yeah.
this is us. Before we started recording, we had a deep dive into Gilligan's Island and how people would be able to get on the island and get off the island, but not the Gilligan's, crew. That's how dumb, this relationship,
Yeah.
is. I need to, jump in here, and I should have done this off the top, but we're about to be joined by your once upon a teammate, Mike Modano, the all-time leading scorer among American-born players in, National Hockey League history, the pride of Westland and Livonia, and, he finished his career as a member of the Red Wings, but not ideally, and we'll get him to tell that story, I think, coming up here on the show. We have some questions from some listeners and viewers for you, Mr. Osgood, if you'd care to, play along here. Um,
I'm ready.
from Gary Turner, what opposing player had the best chirping or trash talking game, and did that ever distract you or other goalies?
Never distracted, but Ty Domi was real good. I mean, I'll never forget when he fought Bob Probert in New York. Outstanding stuff. But Ty Domi talked a lot, and Ty was a better player than most people think. He had pretty good
Sure.
hands. His son now plays for Toronto, but he could chirp a lot.
Could
And
you
when I was
can
at
you
the Isle,
hear can you
oh
hear
yeah,
things that are said? You can
oh
hear
yeah, all the
what's
time.
being said?
And especially I was with the Islanders. We always played Toronto that was a rival for us amongst many others around the New York area, the Rangers, but Toronto was one of ours too. And Ty Domi was nonstop in those series. Real good chirper, but a guy that I respected. He's a pretty darn good player too. So it would have been Ty Domi. And no, it doesn't really rattle you. You kind of have some fun with it. You enjoy it, but Ty Domi for sure one of the best at it.
How much did Chris Draper chirp?
Chris Draper chirped a lot, and and one of our guests that we have had or hopefully have on here, Joey Kosher, would attest to that, and so would Darren McCarty. I think Drapes and Maltz talked more when those two are around. That's what they would say, and I would do the same thing. If I had those two beside me, I'd be chirping to anybody. But if they're not there, I'd watch what I say. But for sure, those two and Draper quite a bit, and same with Maltby. But that was their job. They're really good at it, and that grind line was. Like we talk about teams in Florida now, or we'll talk to Mike Modano coming up about his Dallas teams, the great veterans they had on their teams. Those guys make teams. I mean, the stars are the stars, but guys like that, those character guys, those guys that chirp, create a lot of chaos, are real important.
Obviously, you had a, very close relation have a very close relationship with Chris Draper. How gritty could practices be, because he's talking all the time as you're playing against him in practice?
I'm gonna give you a great example of Chris Draper's intensity and chirping and competitiveness. This is after our career, John. Two instances. One, we're playing the Heritage Classic alumni game. Boreal Sami, one of my highlights, he had a penalty shot. I mean, just fantastic. The late great Boreal Sami, but some cool players on the ice. Mike Palmatura, I grew up watching, was a goalie. Well, Chris Draper ran Gary Roberts and almost got into a fight in the Heritage Classic. So that's
Sure.
one. And the other one, we played an alumni slash kind of firefighters or police officers would play from Traverse City. We had a game up there. And Ken Holland and I were partners in net. Jeff Blashill, who was way better than I expected, was in the other net. And our team was winning. And Drape ran. Now you can't run this guy, Mark Howe, behind the net. I left the puck for Mark Howe and Drapes hammered him behind the net because we were winning. He was
Oh.
getting pissed. Then he ran me in the net. The net went flying off. I, so I'm just saying, I don't think he's ever turned it off. I don't think now. He's one of those guys that even you could be playing. Now he's a professional pickleball player. He just got his second hip done. We'd love to get him on the show. He's going for the 2025 version. I'll reference the 80s again. Steve Austin, you know that $6 million man. So
Oh
he's
my
got two
God.
fake hips now, so he can move beautifully on the court. But he does play in the league. He might be one of the most competitive guys I've met, and still is.
And we're trying to get him to come on
Yeah,
the
he's
podcast.
busy.
Or,
He's
well,
busy.
I'm leaving it to you, and so nothing has happened in that regard.
That's a lot of people say that with things for me. Nothing has happened.
Nothing is happening. Yeah, I mean,
Sometimes
but
it's great when nothing happens. The great Hedrick Zetterberg once said, sometimes when nothing happens, it's really good. And he was right.
and you cling to that. That's your
I cling
that's
to
your
that.
that's your
I
life
cling to
motto,
it
is
every
it?
day. Every day I cling to that.
if if nothing happens today, oh, it's been a great day. All right.
Expectations go down. You feel good
Yeah.
about yourself
All
every day,
right.
even when nothing
Yeah.
happens.
Well, and if Drapes is happens to be listening,
Yeah.
you're invited to join us
And
at any time, right?
and Drapes has got a cool story. Remember, he was traded or bought for $1 from the
A
Winnipeg
dollar,
Jets.
yeah.
He's had a real cool career. I mean, he played for Team Canada. Malpe, who we had on the show, referenced it. He won a Selkie. He's played with some great players. He's been a kind of a pest on the grind line. Everybody knows him for that. And first and foremost, but he was a great World Junior player in Canada. So now he's running the draft for the Wings and has drafted a lot of the young guys the fans do see now in Grand Rapids and in Detroit. So he's definitely a guy we need to get on. And I'd be remiss not to mention his golf game. Used to be great. It's taken kind of a hit, but all of ours do as we get older.
Oh,
And but he's replaced that with he plays on a pickleball in pickleball tournaments with a pro, and he's won tournaments. So, and I was at the gym once, and there's a magazine on the rack, which that doesn't happen a lot anymore, but where I go there is one, it was a pickleball monthly magazine with Chris Draper on the front of it. I almost lost my breath when I saw this thing. So we gotta ask him about this little pickleball endeavor. So, which
did
is
you ask
one of the
him?
most
Did you ask him
popular
to?
sports.
Yeah, I know. Did you ask him to sign the magazine for you? I mean,
I didn't
have that
grab the
at
magazine, but I
yeah.
definitely should have. And he's a
Oh,
great
that's
paintball
gold.
player. Drapes and I used to play paintball in charity events against pros, and it was on. And we had a
All right.
lot of great games. So he's definitely we can talk forever with him.
We'll get to those stories if and when we get to Chris Draper
I'd
on the
like to
Ozzy
get
and
one of the
Keats podcast.
guys that we played paintball against because there are some really good teams for charity and kicked our ass the last game. Everybody, we were playing, and I turned around, and everybody was already gone within like 2 minutes. And a guy came around the corner, shot me in the back about 20 times. I think they were pissed that we were in the final. I'd like to get one of those guys on the show.
Yeah. And before we move on, um, how do Canadians say dollar?
Dollar,
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 dollar.
dollar,
They bought them for $1, right?
one dollar.
That's how
It's
it's said.
amazing.
All right,
It's a good
one other
story.
question, and then we're going to get to Mike Modano. Sitting here, this is from Jesse Dean. And
Yeah.
if anybody has questions, go to the OzzyandKeats.com website, and you can post your questions there, and maybe we'll use them on an upcoming podcast.
Wow, we got one of those.
We
Wow,
do. Did you not
we have a
know we have an
website. I didn't even know we have a website.
OzzyandKeats.com? Yeah, that's everybody can go there.
Awesome. All right.
And the YouTube page. We encourage everybody to go to the YouTube page, and all the previous episodes are there, going from
Cool.
Dan Campbell to Mike Tirico to Jim Leland to Jeff Daniels to J.K. Simmons,
Yeah.
Todd McClellan is in there, Chris Chelios, Mickey Redmond is in there. All of those episodes are on the Ozzy and Keats YouTube page. So go there because they're still something that can be listened to and enjoyed. All right,
Right.
from Jesse Dean.
Yeah.
Watching the replay of the '98 Stanley Cup Championship game versus the Capitals, can you let us all in on the emotion in that moment of being handed the cup first after taking the lap with Vladdy? And the world tried to tell you weren't good enough to win, says Jesse. that was the day that you proved very much you were.
That was it was cool. I remember I actually we had to stay in hotels at home, and my roommate that year was Steve Eiserman. Now that's nerve-wracking enough playing the playoffs, but imagine rooming with him. I mean, he would laugh at that comment because we were kind of like not kind of opposite of each other, to
Not
be
kind
honest.
of opposites, exactly opposites of
Totally
each other.
opposite. It would be like Bosom Buddies, that show. And again, I'm referencing back to the 80s.
Jeez.
And
Bosom
that
buddies.
alone, for sure. I mean, the emotion of Vladdy being on the ice and in the stands, watching in Washington, and a long journey. Be honest, a lot of pressure that year, and hopefully we get this guy on. And I'm trying as we speak. This weekend was is Mike Vernon, who won the Conn Smythe. He was a close friend of mine. Wins the cup, and then he gets traded to San Jose. So yeah, there is a little pressure because those are big shoes to fill for sure. The following year, um, to be honest, quite a bit of relief when we did win, because there was a lot of pressure. There's some for sure ups and downs, a couple of long goals that you had to fight back from. I remember in Dallas, and I probably played my best game. Not that I'm rambling, and I think it was game 5. Uh, we're up 2-1, played great. Sure enough, they scored late on a tip in front to make it 2-2, and then I think Langenberger scored from like the red
This
line.
is against Mike Modano's team. See how it all fits together? It's against Mike Modano's team.
Yeah, and you always learn from mistakes, unlike yourself. Um, but when the puck's 3 feet out of the net, now you're in Dallas, or if you're in LA, Florida nowadays, the ice is bad. It gets real snowy, it gets choppy. Back then they didn't shovel it. So anything like that, you knew as a goalie not to, because it could skip. Well, it skips, hits the inside of my stick, goes in. It was missing the net. I could have left it, it would hit the corner. And I'm walking off the ice just like, why? Why? Why do I gotta fly back and play this? I played my best game probably of the playoffs, and it ends up being maybe my worst. So I gotta go back, refocus, uh, room with Stevie another night, slip into the game. We win in game 6, and then we end up playing Washington, and Drape scores a great overtime goal in that series too. Referencing talking about him again. So you go to that, and then Stevie hands me the cup after everything with Vladdy, which was outstanding stuff on the ice. How we got there wasn't, but the circumstance that ended up how it happened was really cool. Um, and then the other one was when I was at Hockey Town Cafe, not feeling particularly sharp in the morning. That's where you kind of everybody got together to go into the parade. And the year before, um, I was in the same condition, but I was kind of at the back of the parade, right? Like I didn't know. I just went, and I'm not a big deal for status of where we are. I'm a small town Canadian kid, you know that.
No, that's
But
not
this
true at
year,
all.
Stevie goes, "Well, you're at the front, and I'm giving you the cup to take down Woodward." So that was a real cool thing. So got some cool pictures of that with all the people. So wasn't expecting that, but you talk of Stevie being the GM now, but wasn't always he wasn't a leader that yelled and screamed, but just real focused. When he spoke, it meant something, and his actions were always the proper ones. That's what I'll say. But those
All
were
right.
two cool things.
Two things. The podcast has become basically just sort of a begging for people to come on the podcast, which is kind of pathetic, really. I mean,
Yeah.
we're telling people who we want to have on that we haven't had on yet, which is sad and tragic. Secondly, and we will not bog down the conversation with Mike Modano about this, but you mentioned playing in Dallas, and I can't let it go without you giving me a chance to hear something about the Stars girls in Dallas.
They're always in the corner, and the goalie had to sit with them in the
These are
old.
the girls. These are the girls that clean the ice, right? When there's a
Yeah,
timeout.
I think the Stars girls were before there's anybody cleaning the ice, if I'm correct, right? There was never like anybody, obviously, at the LCA. It's a Carhartt ice crew, I believe. So there was really nobody, and people were kind of taken back by it. And you're in the corner, and their
Wait, when
coaches were
when you say people were taken back by aback by it, were you talking about yourself? You were
well, they
taken aback by
well,
what,
yeah, I
and you
was,
got
but
distracted.
yeah, you clean the ice, and now there's girls dressed like Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders cleaning the ice around the goalie's feet and around the bench, and so that was kind of where I believe it started. I'm pretty sure. Um, it was it made
Unfocusing. It would make you unfocused.
well, it made the TV timeouts a lot better than they usually were. We'll put it that way.
Okay. All right. Well, again, we'll leave it right there. And Mike Modano joins us on Ozzy and Keats. All right, there he is. It is up for a bit of debate that he is the best American-born hockey player ever. Chris Chelios might have an issue with that, but it's great to see Mike Modano. I'll start with this. What's the feeling like when they tell you that you're going to have a statue made of you that's going to sit outside the arena in Dallas? Do you have any say as to what that's going to be like?
Well, the thing was that they approached me maybe 3, 4 years ago, just at the tail end of COVID. So they're like, "Hey, we're thinking about doing this, but you gotta keep it quiet." So I had to keep it quiet for almost like 3 years. Then probably maybe a year into, when it was announced that we're gonna do it through the organization, we made some trips to Chicago, to the infirmary there, to the artist, and did some renderings and did some thoughts which picture we were going to pull from Getty or whatever images. And so we went through a lot of them, and about five of us were kind of flipping through images. And it's funny, like the four or five of us kind of came down to this one particular image. And that's the one that we kind of went with, obviously. So it turned out amazing. I hadn't seen the end product. I was there kind of halfway through, and at the tail end of it, when I saw that, I was there at the tail end of finishing the Barry Sanders
Wow.
statue, which was there in the office. So I got to see that up front. And they just did an amazing job. Just the details of the threads, the jersey, everything, the wrinkles, everything else was phenomenal. So, but yeah, until they pull the cape off, I didn't know what it was going to look like. So you're kind of holding your breath there at the end.
Well, I was like in playoffs and all that stuff. What was the? I'm always interested because I watched the game when you guys won the Stanley Cup against Buffalo. The relief when Brett Hall scored that goal, and eventually, to me, that was the dumbest rule in hockey history, the blue paint. But the relief to knowing you didn't have to go back and play Game 7 with Dominic Hasek in the net.
Yeah, I think we probably would have lost five or six guys. I think Hully was on one leg himself. I think the goal he scored was his first shift in overtime, and that was three overtimes into it. So I think he was kind of wobbling on one MCL on his right leg. So had Verbeek and Blake Sloan on my line there for a while in the overtimes, but Hitch asked him if he had one shift in him, and he's like, "Yeah, I can go." And then sure enough, he scores. So we're kind of side by side where we're batting it around on Hasek, and luckily Hully just kicked it up and scored. But yeah, if we had to go game seven, I think Benoit Hogue was out, Hully was out. There was probably a few more guys that would have been very questionable. So we knew if we didn't get that done, we'd be in big trouble for game seven back home.
It's now a quarter century ago, but can you describe that feeling of lifting the Stanley Cup and then beyond that, bringing it to the places that are most important to you in the days that follow?
Yeah, I think for me there was really personal and kind of I would say, just a total relief, just knowing that you're still with the team that drafted you, with thoughts of them thinking that you're going to take them to the promised land or to get them to some consistent hockey and get them some playoffs and maybe some cup runs. And so you're kind of waiting and waiting. So, it was a, 12-year period until we finally got there after 91. We thought we could get there every year. And we were kind of a Cinderella story with the North Stars in 91 with Pittsburgh. But we're like, we can't wait to do this next year. And you realize how hard it is just to get into the playoffs and nonetheless get to the finals. So when we got there in 99, I think when that goal went in, I think it was just total, just exhaustion, relief. I was kind of working on one hand myself. So it was just kind of glad it was over one way or the other. But yeah, it was just total satisfaction just knowing you got one. I just it didn't matter to me what happened to my career or whatever after that. I just was happy that was over and we had one.
Yeah, absolutely. I always wonder because I grew up out west, Mo, and how does like American kid from Michigan end up playing for the Prince Albert Raiders and not somewhere? And John, this is the Western Hockey League, just so you know, but not a lot of times. And Mike and Trevor Lynn, I believe, are the 1-2 draft picks that year. But how the heck did you end up in northern Saskatchewan?
Well, that's a long story. I had obviously grew up watching Jimmy Carson and Pat
Yep.
LaFontaine, and these guys went to Quebec. So my initial thought was going to Verdun or Laval, or and then we had contact with the Hull Olympics, which Gretzky was part owner. Pat Burns was coaching at the
Wow.
time. So we had played a tournament in Hull with Little Caesars out of Detroit. And then it's funny, the scouts from Prince Albert were in the Max tournament in Calgary that same year, but we played in Hull. And so I got contacted after the season about coming to play in the Quebec Major Junior League, which was first and foremost my decision. But they have an underage draft. So we had to go to Quebec for the draft. The night before the draft, Charlie Burns, Pat Burns, Charlie Henry, and Pat Burns call, and they changed their mind. They decided to go with another player at like 3 in the morning. And we're supposed to get on a flight at 9 to Montreal for the draft. And so we're just, I was totally distraught. I was like just totally bummed out. I didn't want to stay at home again another year and play midget for Caesars. I wanted to kind of move on. And so we just kind of hang tight, and I was still too young to get recruited. I wanted to go to maybe Michigan State. If that was my route, I was going to go for college with Mason and Rod Brindamore, Joe Murphy. All of us would have been there, Mazzotti.
Wow.
So we would have had a pretty good team in Michigan State nonetheless. But about 2 weeks later, Rick Wilson calls me and said that we picked you up on our player protective list, which was a little different than their draft in the Quebec and Ontario list. So he just kind of gave me the spiel and said, "Hey, you want to talk to Dave Manson, Emmanuel Viveros, Pat Oliniak?" So I called all these guys just to kind of get an idea of what, even Prince Albert was, where it was. And, so my parents were looking at the map, and so I told him like, I'll come up I'll come up for a weekend and check the area out and see if I like it. And, if so, I'd love to stay. So, but after the 2 weeks sitting at home, I'm like, I packed everything I had. I knew I was going to stay. So I got off the plane, drove to Prince Albert, checked into school and high school there. And that was it. I just, uh,
It's freezing there.
I know.
Oh my
And the thing is you're 50,
beyond.
you don't know any different. I just got my driver's license. I haven't really been traveling around Detroit driving around anywhere because I wouldn't want to do that anyway. So so I just got my license, went up to Prince Albert, and that. But yeah, I mean, no one, if I knew then what I know now, I mean, I don't know, it would have been, I had a hard second
Yeah.
maybe, but it turned out to be amazing. I ended up spending my summers there, had a bunch of great friends in high school and playing hockey. And so it was just an
Cool.
amazing experience. I mean, just small town Canada. I mean, you learn to appreciate what hockey means to Canadians. So, I mean, that was a big eye opener how religious that sport was in that country when you're living there and you're day to day 24/7. It's just hockey everywhere. So it was great.
Well, let's talk about that because I find that interesting as a non-hockey player, and Ozzy's going through this with his son Max now, and travel and all the stuff that goes into going to various tournaments. But the whole idea of picking up when you're 15, 16 years old and going to a new place and going to a new school and living with a family that you really didn't know yesterday, how overwhelming can that be for kids?
Well, I think for parents who've kind of been through it, obviously there's a little bit of a comfort there that that it's going to work out. There's good people involved in organizations. The families were great. I was with a great family. Drysidle ended up living with the same family I live with in Prince Albert.
Wow.
So everybody was beating down that door to kind of live with that family because they thought something magical was going on in that house. But yeah, to jump on a plane, I drove to Windsor, got on a plane, went to Toronto, and then Toronto to Saskatoon. So I was like, you're waving goodbye to your parents, and back then you just really didn't have the access you have now to your kids or watching them on TV or pulling them on the internet. My parents were just getting, you know, the Prince Albert Herald delivered to them every week to kind of read up on the clips and what's going on in the league because you really had no other access to it. But now you got the USHL, you got the North American Junior League, you got all these avenues. You know, Probably would have been for me that the development program in Plymouth. I probably would have done that rather than going to Canada
Right.
at the time. So there's great options for kids, and but yeah, I mean, now that I have kids and they're young, but I feel at some point you're going to make that hard call, but it's best for them, and you just kind of hold your breath and hope you make a decision that turns out well. And if it doesn't, you just try to reevaluate and make another one.
Are you prepared for that, Ozzy, for Max to move out? And God bless Max for wanting to move out, by the way.
They're ready to go away from me.
Yeah.
But Mo, all the kids, how has that affected your golf game? I remember you beat one of the. If I rank my golfers, people ask me the best guys, and I only played with you for a short amount of time. But I remember you guys at camp, best golfers, you and Brett Hall,
Holly
and
was
Michael
great.
Pekka unexpectedly was good as well.
Yeah.
How's the golf game?
We had a lot of fun. It's a little suspect here in Minnesota, so your season's short, so now the kids are all in camp. So, but now the kids are in school, so fall golf might work out for me for a little bit here when everybody's in school. But yeah, the game's not at the level it was maybe when I was playing in Detroit. So, but yeah, it's been tough go. Then we're in Phoenix, which was great. Played every day and worked on the game and had fun. And kids were in school, so you had a lot of time to kind of dissect it and maybe tweak things. But that might be the problem too. When you start playing too much, you start analyzing and kind of watching videos. And you're like, then that's it's a whole nother rabbit hole. So I kind of enjoy maybe putting the clubs away for 3 4 months in Minnesota and just kind of hanging out and maybe give my brain a rest from the game.
All right, we're going to get into the end of your career, which ended in Detroit, and your 1 year with Ozzy. And I want to hear whatever stories you have that are going to greatly embarrass Ozzy. That's coming up in a minute. But you mentioned your golf game. You married a professional golfer, for goodness sakes. I mean, I would guess that's probably good for your golf game, right? I mean, to get lessons from somebody who's in your damn house.
Yeah, it was good at the start. She was, then the student became the teacher. That's the problem. So but she was handy there, and we had a mutual friend in Orlando that kind of set us up. Nonetheless, it would have to be Joe Micheletti's daughter. So, but yeah, she can still walk out there and play like she's been playing for years. So. That's what's aggravating most, but it's amazing muscle memory what it'll do for you. Your body remembers what it's supposed to do, and it does for her, and it doesn't for me. So that's the aggravating part. But yeah, she had a good little game for more between the years than myself for sure.
You guys were in Arizona, and then you moved to Dallas, where you were in the front office for the Stars. For the last handful of years, you've been in Minnesota helping the Wild. What was that transition like to change organizations and how differently they might be doing things?
Yeah, it's always interesting to kind of see a different perspective from, just top to bottom, what they do, how they handle, protocol, and they have personnel and the different departments. And, so I was around with doing some wild stuff before Billy Guerin was hired. So, Paul Fenton at the time was the GM, and I think Craig Leopold, the owner, was interested in maybe moving out from that relationship. So he asked me to kind of help out with trying to find a GM, which I had no idea how to do that, and run some interviews. So I had a handful of interviews that I had to run online and with these guys on the phone and maybe in person. So yeah, that was nerve wracking. And then he put my name in the paper that I was helping him. So I realized I didn't know I had so many friends in the NHL. Then after he announced I was helping him find a GM job, so everybody was calling me out of the woodwork, wanting an interview and everything else. But it was interesting to see that process, and just sat down with Craig and Matt Maker, and we kind of narrowed it down to Scott Mellenby and Billy Guerin, and Billy and Craig just meshed real well, and that personality kind of worked well. So at least I got that over Billy. I said, just remember, who hired you back in the day. So I got that. I got that in my hand. So. But it's been great. I love Minnesota. I love being back in the Midwest. Just being around the people, and some old North Star fans. They're just diehards here. So, but the kids love it. Our kids love it. The schools and sports and everything else is great. But it's a small town community in Minnesota in the Wild, and they're hoping to kind of improve what they've been doing, and get back to some runs in the playoffs that make it an exciting place to play.
Nice. I would completely be not doing what I'm supposed to if I didn't ask you about this guy, because I loved him when he played. And when Kenny Holland I wasn't even in Detroit, whether to get Chris Joseph or your buddy Ed Belfour. I said you should get Ed Belfour, and I was gone. Any stories for me? I mean, I think the guy was unreal to me, but I didn't know him off the ice. I met him a couple of times, and I know he's a He's a wild card to say the very least. But any good stories on Eddie?
Oh man, there's so many
Here we
with
go. Here we go. It's gonna get good now.
there's so many with Eddie. I just but he came in just he came into a scenario where we had a lot of older veterans and same with Brett Hall. You know, he came from St. Louis. We had Carbonneau, Ludwig, Mike Keene, Brian Screwlin, Pat Verbeek, you know, Joe Newendike. You know, we had some solid personnel guys that
Yeah.
you know, kind of would keep those guys in line. And Eddie, you know, to his credit, I mean, he's one of the biggest gamers I think I've ever been around. You know, more intense individual than I've ever seen. You know, game days, you know, Hitch would just tell us all just stay away from Eddie, just let him do his thing, let him do his focus in and you know, and whatever his program was, we all abided by Eddie's program. So whatever he wanted to do, if he wanted to practice, so be it. If he didn't, then Daryl Ray would come out and do backup for us with Darcy Walkluck or Roman Turk or whatever, or Marty Turco. So you know, so but you know, I think one when in Boston we were playing and Ed wasn't playing, so he was back up to Marty. So we're at the pregame skate, and Hitch wanted to tell. He told Eddie earlier in the morning, so then he was asking to see where Eddie was. We were like, well, he's not here. He was on the bus, and so we can't find him. You know, so we called the hotel, no answer. Everybody's trying to track him down, and the day moves on. We have our naps, wake up, get to the rink, still no Eddie. We're like, what happened? You know, so Eddie had a guy in Dallas that kind of helped him organize his schedule and personal stuff. And he went by Buddy. So someone finally get Buddy on the phone at like 5:35 and like, where's Eddie? Well, he's here at the house. He's just when he knew he wasn't playing, he just got on a plane and flew home to Dallas and just kind of waited for us there.
Oh my God.
Jeez.
No.
He wasn't gonna dress if he wasn't gonna play, I guess, right?
Nonetheless, he was angry he wasn't starting in Boston, so he's like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go home. I'm not starting. I'm not, you know. Oh, so he just he was something else. But man, he was those 2 years we made the final. He was right up there with those, you know, Patrick Waugh and you know Marty Brodeur and Hasek,
Yeah.
Curtis Joseph.
Great.
Man, it was just a great group of goalies at that point that they were going head to head on.
And much like the other goalie in this conversation, as we understand it, Eddie liked to have a little fun. Well, maybe on a night off during a hockey season.
Oh yeah, yeah. He if he knew he had a little bit of a time to recover and have a green light, he was not one to shy away from that. So he would let it go and have some fun. And you know, when he knew he had to button it down and get ready, then he would come back and you know, somehow, some way, just flip the switch and be right back at it like nothing ever happened.
As soon as you said recover, I could see the reaction on Ozzy's face because he's all about that. He can
Well,
recall the recovery process very, very well.
I should have known, but that when Mo was mentioning those guys in Dallas, that's an awesome group of guys. Wow. I mean, those veteran players from Montreal, Ludwig is a beauty. So, I mean, when you think of a winning in Detroit, we had a lot of those teams too. You have your talent, but you got to have all those character guys, those veterans that are sometimes not all there, but when the game's on the line and it's time to play, they do. So that's cool names. I love hearing names like that. It's
Yeah,
awesome stuff.
we had a handful of personalities, and that just kind
Oh,
of kept everything together. And you know, we were flying. You know, that was just prior. Well, I think we are flying maybe private at that point, but you know,
yeah.
just prior to that, it was all commercial, a lot of DFW, 96, 97. I don't think it was till 98 we started renting American airline planes, but we still had to, you know, take the bus from a practice center out to DFW, then fly wherever, come home, take the bus back to the practice center, and then, you know, disperse and go home. So, man, there was a lot of times on the bus and the airplane, and, you know, to have these kind of personalities and guys that were just, I think some of the funniest guys, you know, it made you know, being that time in the bus and the airplanes, just hysterical. These guys just were relentless. They were relentless on Hitch, you know, one another, and just you know, yeah, and Hully who just didn't care about anything and just spoke his mind, and you know, but we just had a you know, a 180 of personalities, and then you had the straight and narrow guys. You know, I tried to be a little bit on the fence, but you know, you had Lettinen and you know all these guys that were just like soldiers. They were just kind of you know pigeonholed in their deal, and they're kind of the backbone of our team, nonetheless, when we got on the ice. But off the ice, I mean, God, these guys. But like you said, Ozzy, when it was game time, I'm like, how can they play after doing what they just did to their body? I just couldn't do. I couldn't do it.
They're veterans.
And on a consistent basis. And you're on the road, you have to stay over. You can't really fly out some nights. So I was like, I don't know how they wake up and do it. It was amazing. It was amazing.
Some of the old school stuff works.
Oh
I
man.
mean, if you look at the Florida Panthers, they're built a lot like those teams you just mentioned.
Yeah.
But in the nowadays, I mean, you trying to implement that with in Minnesota, a little bit of that, try and find some character guys, some guys that are a bit off the wall to build your team. You guys got a good team. You just have to take that next step.
Yeah, and there's not too many of those guys are dying on the sword. There's not too many
Yeah,
of those personality guys that
hard to
just kinda
find.
mesh it along. We got, Bogosian and maybe Middleton and, a little bit of, Zuccarello that are kind of,
Yeah.
a little bit of a carryover from those old times to try to, keep things loose but man, I mean, it's so diligent. The diet, the working out, the rest, the recovery, when to fly, when not to fly, when to stay over. I was like, man, I was like, it was brutal in Dallas because we played everything on the West Coast, but we still fly home, get home 3:34 in the morning, and then you got a day off and then play. So we were always terrible that day after at home, first home game after a West Coast trip. We just, scrapped that one. We knew that, all my friends were taking the over and the loss on those games, hand and foot. So, but it was tough schedule and travel. But nowadays, I mean, I go into that kitchen, I'm like, they just eat like kings. It's 3 meals a day. It's the freshest stuff, organic. The cooks are whipping up stuff all day long. I'm like, no wonder. I mean, they don't have to lift a finger anymore. It's it's a soft world, man, and they don't like being told that they're not playing well, or if it gets a little personal, they're a little fragile. So they have to get some thick skin to them too.
Well, Wings head coach Todd McClellan was on with us and talked about that, how different some of the culture is from the way it used to be, and he's trying to sort of reinstill that. Can that be done, Mo?
I think it can. I think Billy's trying to do it because he's a little bit of that old guard, and John Hines is too. So I mean, there's a little bit of that personality through Billy that tries to be, implemented into the team where, no, no, don't whine who you're playing with. Don't whine if you're not on the power play, or not whining if you're getting special teams minutes or whatever. And go out there and play and perform. And if you do well, you're going to be rewarded with more ice time. So, but you got to be, I John jokes about it, about what you can say to a player, if he's not playing well, or calling him out personally on the bench or in the locker room, because the first call is to the agent calls Billy. He's like, hey, why is
Chase.
the coach saying something like that to my player? And, so it's just how things are handled. And, the players are so guarded and, so protected. It's a lot different than it was.
All right, let's go back to 2010. You are the stars tell you that they're moving on from you after a great career in Dallas, and obviously they celebrated you after you retired. But they move on from you, and you have options between going back to Minnesota and
Mhm.
signing there, or coming to Detroit. And you decided to come home. And obviously, it didn't work so well for you. And I saw a quote from you saying, "In hindsight, I should have signed in Minnesota." What was your year like as a Red Wing?
It was good. I think I was caught off guard by Kenny's call. I was about 3 days away from going on a Scotland golf trip with Vinny LeCavier and Marty St. Louis, Brendan Morrow, Marty Turco. It was about 12 of us going over to Scotland about 3 days before and later. And then Kenny calls me as I'm like, I haven't lifted a finger. I haven't, put on any kind of workout gear at all to do anything at that point. I just figured it was kind of, we're sailing off and not doing anything, and we'll see. But he called me and I was like, oh man, it's just, if anybody else was calling besides Detroit, I would have just said, hey, thanks for the call, but I'm gonna pass and maybe call it a day. But during the trip, talking to the guys and this and that, and kind of settled in. I'm like, no, this is a chance to go home and play with some great players, be at home, play with the Wings. I loved Kenny Holland at the time. We just thought he was just a great guy. I love the Illich family, what they did to us as far as our minor hockey with Little Caesars, and what they did for me growing up there in that city. And so I thought I'd give it a shot and go back. And then realized how much of out of shape I was. And so, so I got into the Chris Draper workout with those guys and Mike Knight. But so probably around Thanksgiving, I felt like I was probably in the best shape I felt I was in 2 or 3 years. I knew at the tail end of my years in Dallas, it was coming to an end. We had coaches in and out. Crawford was in there. Glenn Gullickson was in there for a hot second. The team was in turmoil as far as ownership. We were kind of getting run by Bettman in the league at the time, so we were kind of up in arms. And we had an intern goalie with Newendike, or GM. So anyway, it was an opportunity. So, but then I got hurt, and I'm like, if I didn't get hurt, I think my idea, my feelings, obviously, and my whole demeanor would have changed. Because once I got hurt, it was just a hard struggle to get back. It was just a
Yeah.
rare, crazy injury. So, I didn't think I figured I was done at that point. So I was pushing hard to get back and try to get there for springtime in the playoffs. So we'll see how it goes, but it didn't pan out well.
All right, people should know you got a forearm slashed by a skate, and there were tendons that were torn. Obviously, that's a tough injury for anybody, but particularly for a hockey player who's had great success. And so you're out 3 months, and you're trying to come back. And 1,500 games is sort of a magic number for guys who are in the NHL. You get scratched by Mike Babcock. How much did that catch you off guard?
It did. It was a strange call in the afternoon just prior to my nap, getting ready for the game against the Wild. I think that night. And I don't think we only had a couple more games that night that season to play. So it was an odd phone call to get, especially the position I was in, and just 2 games away from 1,500, just to kind of maybe put a little bit of a band-aid on the year that I had, and maybe round it off 2 up. But yeah, it was just a odd phone call. Just didn't expect to get at that point, knowing that I was just so close. And then he dressed me in Chicago to end up with 14.99. So it was just frustrating at the time. I got to the rink, and he just kind of let it be known that I was there to, he brought me in to win a cup, not to get 1,500 games. But I was like, well, considering the season was on, there isn't anything I could do to play the last 2 games just to kind of get 1,500.
All
And
right.
once he was set on that, it was over. I was like, then I just checked out. I could not believe it. And so, then I didn't play much in the playoffs. So then I knew that the writing was on the wall at that point.
Ozzy, in the room, how much bitterness was there about that Mo didn't get to 1,500, was stuck, would
Lots. I
finish on
remember Dallas Drake.
14.99?
Yeah, Dallas Drake was going for 1,000, and we want him to do it at home. And there's issues with that too. And Dallas Drake was a great veteran forward, and for sure. And guys, you talk about it. I mean, and we're actually, Mo, Drapes very well. I mean, Drapes is trying to get him to put him in for the 1,500. That's just the right thing to do, and it just never happened. But it's a stupid saying, Mo, that it is what it is. But a lot of that stuff happened with that particular coach. But in the end, I think 14.99 is a pretty cool number. Not a lot of players have that.
Well, you look
Fourteen
back
ninety
at,
nine.
you got maybe a lockout and a half, so you're
Yeah,
missing about 120 games there too.
yeah.
So, I mean,
There's lots of different ways.
it could have been a real strong number at the tail end of it if we didn't have any labor issues too. So, but hey,
In the end, a great career, nonetheless. That one game's not going to make a difference.
I know.
Just fantastic from start to finish.
Yeah, it was much more than I ever expected. I didn't dream of any of this. The way it unraveled, and the move to Dallas and everything else that happened post move and after your career with Hall of Fame stuff and statues and jerseys. I
Mm.
mean, it's not in the bucket list. It's just you just want to play and have fun and enjoy the game. And you're around long enough to see some things happen positively that I never thought imagined.
What things did you see happen that involved Chris Osgood that you could share with the kids
I was
watching
good then,
this
John.
podcast? Oh,
I
save it.
was good then
Just
because I
save
was
it.
on my I was on my
I
way
wish
out
I had
too.
some. I wish I had some dirt. I know there's a lot, but I just wasn't. I
Well,
just,
because I couldn't do it anymore. I was older. I wasn't playing. I mean, we're the year we lost to San Jose in the playoffs, I believe or maybe we beat them. I don't even remember. But I was good. I mean, I was at the end. I was trying to stay in decent shape, just trying to play as long as I could, and I was being a good boy. That's the truth.
There were no pranks in the dressing room.
Well,
I
I was
mean,
trying to get,
you got the
I
new
was
guy, you got the veteran Mike Modano. Are you telling me that somebody didn't prank Mike Modano in the Red Wings dressing room when he became
oh
a Red Wing?
yeah, no, I mean, best player of all time, one of them in the U.S. history. No, you don't touch him. It's impossible. You just don't do it. Too much respect.
That's
All
right.
You
right.
can't.
Good answer.
Oh, really? You can't? Yeah. Okay. Um, Before we let you go, obviously you've gotten to know Marc-Andre Fleury there in Minnesota, who's also had a terrific career, and Ozzy can relate to the kind of career that Fleury has enjoyed. He seems to be, and I've interviewed him a couple of times, but he seems to be a fascinating dude and a really good sort of the face of the franchise on his way out of the NHL.
Yeah, it's amazing personality, amazing guy, and he just the love he has for the game. You can see it in practices. I've watched a lot of practices, and you watch guys who are towards the tail end of their career. They'll just do the motions and kind of get in, get out, put their work in. But man, he's out there early, he's out there late, and he just I think he was one that really kind of relished the end of his career. He had an amazing, obviously Hall of Fame and career in Pittsburgh and going on to Vegas and coming here, but just certainly just a real nice guy. Just goes out of his way for everybody. Just cordial as heck and personable, but great guy. Just fun loving. Just loves to have fun, enjoy it. But man, he works hard, and I mean he's just one of those guys that you're in awe of, and you wish you had more of those guys that could rub off on our team because his ethic was off the charts.
I wish I could say that about the goalie that's involved in our little chat here, but I can't. I mean,
It
I
was.
wish he was better than he is, but
Well, I'm a
that's not
little
true.
busy. I'm a little
Huh?
busy here. A lot of boys. Mo, I'm right in it. I got like I bill it. It's USA. Kid is Derek Plant's son's here.
Oh
I
boy.
bill it two other kids. My son's 14. I'm right. Little Caesars where you played.
Oh,
Right in the thick of it right now. So
man.
maybe we'll end
Right.
up coming your way a few times and see if
Right.
we can hold
Yeah.
in there against Shattuck maybe.
Yeah. Let me know if you
Hopefully.
do. I'll come watch.
Well, you might not want to. We'll be there though. It'll be good.
Hey Mo, thanks for your time. It's great
got
to
it.
see you. He is
You
one of
got it.
ours. He is one of Michigan's best and one of our favorite people, and we appreciate the time. And we celebrate your terrific career, and having gotten the chance to know you at the end of your career is one of my great joys. And so we appreciate the time, and
Thanks.
hopefully we'll cross paths one day soon.
For sure. Thanks, Keats.
Thanks, Mo.
Thanks. Take care.
All
Good
right.
luck. All the best,
All right.
guys. Good chatting with
All
you.
right, the great Mike Modano joining us. And that'll do it for this installment of Ozzy and Keats. We thank everybody for watching and listening, and we'll see you next time.
Ozzy and Keats is produced by Zachary Davis and Bill McAllister and proudly distributed by Podcast Nation in Troy, Michigan.